Hey, let's talk about games. Hello guys and girls, it's Psyker Hydra here. Today I want to give you a talk through of the Psyker class. We're going to talk through how it works, what's going on with it, how you use abilities, how you change abilities, and a little bit of a discussion too about the class, the implications for the game, because this is a pretty big step forwards for Neocore. So to kick things off with this class, what's different about it? Well, what's different is you have a combination of weapon-based abilities and spell or ability-based abilities linked to your character. Now, let's go into a little bit more detail with that. If we look at our equipment here, we have numerous different items. We have 4 potential skill slots coming from the weapon, and we have an additional skill slot coming from our belt or focus. So while we can use grenades and other things, we can also have these empty slots to place spells or psychic abilities into. Now, each one of these force weapons, be it a staff or be it a sword, will come with an ability of its own. There seems to be a pool of about 12 different ones at the moment. Some may have 2, some may have 1, and what happens is you will place this onto your character. Then what happens is you go over to your psychic power book over here and you get a layout in terms of what you have equipped. So my staff has 1 ability equipped here on the left. The rest of these I have chosen and put in myself. Now, the way you do this is over on the left. You go with this priority system. So what you do is you can select from the 3 schools of magic as such, or schools of the warp, whatever they're called, and you can literally drag and drop a priority system. Now, if you only have, let's say, 3 open slots here, they will only display the first 3 over on the priority system. So that's how it works. Now, there is an extra layer of complexity here, because if I want to take Misfortune and I want to drag that up there, now, Misfortune itself, we can click on the ability and you'll notice I'm level 10 now, so I have 2 empty slots I can use to customize this for my Inquisitor, which is a really cool feature. The first thing we've seen like this from Neocore, so a big step forwards. Now, in terms of what I can do, this is what I've got unlocked so far. Extends the effect to nearby allies, so I can drag and drop that, and I could be using that on a buff to make it into like a support class. There are all sorts of other things you can use. Attaches health drain, for example, critical hit chance. There are some that have minor effects, there are some that are slightly more dramatic. Increases effectiveness, just basically increases damage of things or amounts of shields that you're going to get. You can also change cooldowns, you can change costs and all sorts. So with these 3 combined, you can have a pretty big impact actually on your character and how you play. And remember, you can change each one of these 4 from any one of these trees. Now, obviously, some of them synergize better with others, simply because, let's say in the fire tree here, we have an ability that gives us some extra fire damage, 50% I believe, from fiery form. So if we're going with that, it would make sense to have some more fire-based abilities. But the good thing is you don't have to. And this is the first real advantage of this patch, first real advantage of the Psyker that I've seen, is this is the first time within this game I've ever felt that sensation that I have created a build. When you create builds with assassins and crusaders, you get left with this taste in your mouth that you've been given a build via your choice in a weapon. And then you have to do what you can to try and make the most of it, which is okay. But being totally honest, in an ARPG, action roleplay game, the roleplay has been missing for a large part, in terms of my personal view anyway, and now we have a little bit of it. I've created some builds, I've tried different things. That sense of wonder, that sense of exploration has really been missing from Martyr till now. However, I do think it's still completely absent from the other classes, and my honest view is something may need to be done. Some pressure may need to be put on Neocore to say, hey, you've done a smashing job with the Psyker. Now granted, it's nowhere near the complexity of Path of Exile and other such ARPGs, but there is an adequate amount to at least have a good bit of fun with. If they add more abilities in future, it's only going to get more and more varied. Now granted, it's going to also be very difficult to balance, but hey, it's also incredibly fun. So I think a little bit of pressure needs to be just applied, a few sort of hands need to be squeezed here. please, Neocore, think about doing this at least to some extent for the other classes somehow. And now, I'm not saying completely redo the other two. Maybe there's some happy middle ground that could be done that won't be too draining in terms of development time. I know the Psyker was not an easy thing to create. I know it was that was one of the factors in terms of delaying the patch. But it's pretty goddamn good, and I honestly think it's been worth the wait. It is good. Now, moving on from here, let's now talk about the other new mechanic, the heat mechanic. So when you're playing a game as the Psyker, instead of running out of mana like a normal mage would do in a game, which is incredibly droll for the 40k universe, you have a heat mechanic, and when you go over your heat threshold, it increases your chances of causing a warp anomaly via every single ability you use. Not the weapon abilities, just the actual Psyker abilities. Now, what you'll notice is, if we go back into my book here, the defensive abilities in particular have quite a high cost. 35 here, 25 there, 28 there. If I do all three of those in a row, I am guaranteed to make something happen which is probably not going to be a lot of fun, and at the same time is immensely fun and enjoyable. So what tends to happen with these warp anomalies is it could be a pillar that will chase you around, it could be some spiky urchins that will wander around, some warp anomalies. I don't know, they don't all seem to have their own names. It could be a glyph on the floor that's going to explode, it could be a demon that you summon. There's quite a lot of different ones, and it's weird in a way that I've been craving these sorts of mechanics on enemies for a long time. This is the first ARPG I've played where the elite mobs really don't actually do anything. They just sort of either shoot you or walk at you and hit you, and the occasional one hits the ground in front of them or runs at you. And let's be honest, the elite combat in this game is not particularly exciting. However, all of a sudden we've got these abilities that I've been craving, and I'm the one causing them. And you'll notice if and when I stream the Psyker, which I will be soon once it's fixed, I'm the one causing all of these problems, but I really enjoy it. I would like to see enemy Psykers causing them too. I would like them to randomly happen at certain other points. I'd like more mechanics in the game like this. Now granted, you can't have too many, and if you're causing some and the enemy are causing some, it might be a bit of a headache, but a party of Crusaders is going to have a very bland experience within a game compared to a party of Psykers that are just going to have a complete nightmare if there's 4 of them. So I think it's a great mechanic. I really like it. It's so 40k. I think it's a bit ingenious, the fact that you're the one causing all these problems. And yet, I do feel that the fact that it's you doing it is an issue, because it's only one of the 3 classes. And granted, you can't have a Crusader or an Assassin causing them, but it means that you have a lot less to do. Granted, the Assassin does have a dodge function, which is nice, but it does mean that by comparison, a Crusader is not only has less to do, but it's just very simple. And you put them in a party with a Psyker. I mean, I can actually see in the future people saying, looking for group, no Psykers allowed if you're trying to do really difficult content. Now, granted, there is a risk and reward system with this. First up, these abilities can be dodged. Second up, they can be avoided via good heat management. What you do is you use a staff ability to simply lower your heat, which is pretty okay. It's actually quite easy to avoid the anomalies if you want to. But I think it's such a good step forward for Neocore that they need to take another step forward, hopefully before release, in terms of the other classes, because this sense of exploration, I don't like mages, and yet I'm in a spot where this is the only class I really enjoy, because A, I get to create, B, I get a interactive combat experience rather than just sort of a point and click, and C, it's really cool. It's just really cool. Love the class. Guys, I want to know your thoughts down in the comments below as to what you think of this. What does this mean for Neocore? Do you feel like the Crusader has been left behind? Do you feel like the Assassin is a little bit bland? And if you feel the Assassin is bland, you must feel the Crusader is potato. But that being said, I do love the guy. He's big and cuddly, and he is fun to play. Maybe this is just me being a little bit biased, because I have played him for something like 9 months. But that being said, an extra little WASD you could do with a Crusader, a little small stun, a shoulder barge, doesn't matter what it is. Give him something to do. Make him feel important. Could be useful. Guys, again, let me know down in the comments what you think of all of this. What you think of the Psyker, what does it mean for the game? And I'll see you in tomorrow's video. Take care, all the best.